They had a competition for each sport to decorate your little house. And I always remember the female shooters because they had shooters with hooters. That was their theme. Sorry if this is PG.
No.
And we weren't much better because we put 12 green and gold G-strings and we had a blow-up doll with a bodysuit on.
Ever wonder what it's like to be an athlete on the world's biggest stage? And what really goes on inside the village? Let's find out.
Legends with Bevo. The road to Tokyo. Thanks to Anytime Fitness Glenelg, Renelec Electrical Services, Tiger Tennis, and SMS Gas Installations.
This episode of Legends with Bevo is proudly sponsored by Kookaburra Homes. Kookaburra Homes have been awarded South Australia's most professional home builder 2 years in a row. They're a true SA success story and are passionate about other South Australians sharing their success stories. Rachael Sporn, welcome to Legends of Bevo, the road to Tokyo. Great to have you on the show now. A three-time Olympian, your very first Olympics back in 1996, we'll get to in a moment, but talk to us through your memories as a child, though, growing up with the Olympics.
Yeah, well, I grew up in a very small country town in Victoria of just 300 people, and the only TV station we had was ABC. So there was absolutely no women's sport to watch like there is now. And so I grew up wanting to be a boy because I wanted to play footy because my dad and brother played at a high level and loved footy as well. But the Olympic Games and Commonwealth Games were what I absolutely loved watching. And I still remember to this day when I was 8 years old watching the 1976 Montreal Olympics and watching Raelene Boyle compete, our Australian sprinter queen. And I remember feeling I was amazed that we had a female athlete from Australia competing in the Olympic final. I was just blown away that someone could get there and do that. And I could see that she was a fighter and so determined. And yeah, so it was from that point right then that I wanted to be an Olympian because I thought I could run really fast in the paddocks at home. So I had aspirations to be, a track and field athlete. And that was, the first time I wanted to be an Olympian.
Obviously, you went on to do the three Olympics with basketball, but did you ever sort of get at a high level with your track and field, or was it what sort of distance were you're good at?
Yes, definitely not long distance. So I didn't like cross country, didn't like 800s. 400s were disgusting, then it made you throw up. So it was 100 and 200 metres. I actually competed in Victoria at Olympic Park in the Northern Zone high schools, but it wasn't in it wasn't in 100 metres or 200s. It was actually long jump, javelin, and high jump. So it ended up being field events rather than track. So I just wasn't fast enough.
Were you close to getting the Olympics with those sort of sports? No.
No, at high school level, pretty good. But beyond that, no, I wouldn't have got anywhere.
And 1996, Atlanta. Tell us your memories of finding out you're going to be going to your very first Olympics in terms of basketball and what that feeling like when you found out.
Well, I guess you have to go a little bit back 4 years before to understand what it meant to me because we didn't qualify for Barcelona in 1992. So we went to a pre-Olympic tournament. I was 24. I was so ready to go to my first Olympic Games, been in the Australian team for 4 years. And it was probably a bit like the Socceroos when it was harder to qualify because there was 16 nations in that tournament and there was only 4 spots available because there only used to be 8 women's teams instead of 12 like there is now. And we won our first 5 games in that tournament. We were travelling beautifully. We'd beaten China, who were really strong. And our 6th game, we lost to Brazil in double overtime by 2. So we had to win our last match to make the Olympics. But as history have it, we didn't. We lost to Czechoslovakia by 3. And I still remember vividly crying in the change rooms, Robbie Caddy, our coach, trying to console us. One of the worst days definitely of my life. And it was actually really hard coming home because we felt we had failed. So it was hard sort of seeing family and friends. So 4 years later to make the Atlanta Olympic team was obviously just all my dreams come true and I just couldn't wait for it.
What an amazing feeling that must have been, like you mentioned before, 4 years earlier, having that heartbreak and then turning to jubilation, knowing that you're going to be competing in your very first Olympics with the Opals. They were called the Opals back in those days.
Well, we did. We thank God we got rid of the name Bloomers and it went to Opals. So that was just a disaster, wasn't it, Bloomers? So, we had a lot of changes. We went to new name, we got a new coach in Tom Ma, and we had a new uniform, the controversial bodysuit. So there was a lot of changes, but we just worked harder. Our team culture was brilliant. And then we won the bronze medal. So we won Australia's first ever senior medal at the Olympics for men or women.
Unbelievable. Congratulations
Thank
on
you.
that. And the feeling of, your very first Olympics, give us an idea in terms of the build-up and what it was like. What sort of, did that training sort of become a lot harder for the girls leading into the Olympics, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I guess 12 months out, you get pretty excited because there's always a bit of fanfare about 1 year to go. And we did a lot of touring, and our form in the lead up to Atlanta was brilliant. We played in pre-tournaments, and I don't think we dropped a match. We were playing so well, so we were really confident going into the games. And I guess just moving into the Olympic Village was incredible because it had little notes everywhere. Remember to stay focused. Don't get distracted by all the amazing athletes around you and what it means. So, yeah, you did have, and particularly with basketball, because we were day 2 and we didn't finish till the last day. So you had to stay focused all the way through, whereas swimmers finish in the first week. And some athletes just have one competition, one day, and then that's it. So, but yeah, the Olympic Village was amazing. The dining hall, is the size of 2 football ovals and has to feed 16,000 people, and it's open 24/7. What was crazy in Atlanta was there was 9 McDonald's restaurants in the village, all free, which was just nuts, and only in America that they would do that. So really you had to be strong with that, and it was mainly athletes were going to it when they'd finished their comp. But yeah, it's just a great experience, and also very lucky that in my first games we did march in the opening ceremony, because obviously a lot of swimmers never get to do that if they compete on the first, second or third day. So that was just brilliant. Our opening ceremony uniform though was too hot. They didn't really make good decisions with that, because obviously it's Summer Olympics, it's always so humid and everything, but otherwise great memories of Atlanta.
And the atmosphere, with the march, what was it like?
Oh, incredible. And I guess it is a long event because 200 countries marching, and because we're A for Australia, we're one of the first countries to march, and then you've got to wait, another hour and a half in the middle. So they're throwing water into you because it was so hot for the rest of the countries to march. Just so grateful that I did get to do that. And I guess brilliant stadium that we played in for basketball, because we played in the Gridiron Stadium, the Georgia Dome. So it was actually split in half. So you had gymnastics one side and basketball the other. Our very first game against Korea at 9 a.m, we played in front of a world record crowd for women, 31,000 people. And that's just nuts, going from Murrayville, Victoria, with a population of 300 people, playing in front of pretty much no one, and going to that. Never forget it.
In terms of the village, I've spoken to a couple of other people in recent weeks, and I heard some very interesting stories about water bomb fights and things like that. Did that happen as well when you were there?
Not so much. I think Sydney was interesting because they had a competition for each sport to decorate your little house. And I always remember the female shooters because they had shooters with hooters. That was their theme. Sorry if this is PG. No. And we weren't much better because we put 12 green and gold G-strings, and we had a blow-up doll with a bodysuit on. So that was our demonstration of our initiatives and imagination. But no, it was amazing. And I think what was great, because in the Sydney Olympics, because we were the host nation, we were very close to the dining hall, which was great. You have a few perks. And there was always athletes kicking the footy. And my favourite memories, because I love Pat Rafter, are him and Leighton Hewitt kicking the footy in front of our house. So we'd just sit there on the deck chairs and pretty much salivate. So no, and I think you have to, I guess, understand how amazing these athletes are, and incredible eye candy for both men and women, because every one of us there is at our peak fitness. And it's just so interesting seeing all the different physiques for all the different disciplines. It's amazing.
That's so interesting hearing that as well, yeah. And in terms of, you mentioned before, Raelene Boyle was your idol growing up. Who was the hero that you sort of, when you got to the village back in 1996 or any of the other Olympics you've been in, where you thought, wow, this is the coolest thing ever. I've just come up close and personal with one of my biggest idols. Who was that?
Well, it was mainly that I snuck in to watch Kieran Perkins swim the 1500 and see him win that. So for me, because it's actually hard to identify all of the other amazing track and field athletes because they don't have as high a profile as, say, the tennis players. So you're more likely to recognise a tennis player. But for me, it was actually Kieran Perkins because I saw him win that race and, how relieved he was after it. So, yeah, I'd have to say that was my sort of moment in Atlanta.
And advice for the Olympians, obviously Tokyo 2021, fingers crossed it all goes ahead all right. What advice do you have for new Olympians?
Well, with this Olympics, it's going to be different, particularly first-time Olympians. It will be so different to what I experience, but you still have to just know that you've worked so hard and you deserve to be there and still enjoy every minute. And it is going to be hard because they won't probably be allowed to go and watch any other event. They're going to have to stay in a bubble. And that's going to be difficult times because at time you do need an outlet. You need to get out and maybe go shopping or just do something different just to, get away from the focus and the stress. But I don't know if they're going to have that opportunity or luxury to do that. So I think it's just focusing on their moment and making sure that, they do the best they can in the situation that's thrown at them.
And do you think there's going to be crowds there as well? Or what's your feel?
I know. Well, up to a month ago, it was saying Japanese crowd, but not allowed to cheer, and obviously with their masks on. But then when you consider the latest poll has said 83% of Japanese don't want the Olympics to go ahead, will they go anyway? And that's going to be really sad if they don't have crowds. But I guess, again, what's going on, just remember how many billions of people will be watching on TV and that all your family and friends at home will be cheering you on. So I think that's the mindset that athletes will have to have. And as we spoke before with the 100 metres, maybe the fake crowd noise might have to be there just to get them up as well. But I think, look, mental toughness with athletes at this level is fine. And I'm sure that they're going through these scenarios, with their sports psychologists or counsellors anyway, that, look, this is probably what you're going to have to expect.
And yourself personally, in terms of if it happened to you back in 1996 or the other Olympics 2004, how would have you dealt with it, the Olympics being postponed for 12 months?
Look, it would have been hard for Athens because I retired straight after and I wanted to have another baby. So that would have been a really crazy juggling act. Okay, can I do this for another 12 months? I'm tipping that I probably would have because I worked so hard. I was a mum. Taya was 2 years old, so I'd worked so hard to get back for Athens. So I think I would have stuck it out for another 12 months just because of the reward that it offers you. And I think I would have regretted not pushing for one more year.
So that's a really interesting way of looking at it, though, in terms of, people that are coming closer to their careers, whether they go on ahead, obviously wait another 12 months or whether they retire. So, it's a really interesting perspective for sure. And it's
an interesting one for Shyla Hill, Shane Hill's daughter, because if the Olympics had gone ahead last year, she wouldn't have been selected into the team. But because they've been postponed, she had an amazing WNBL season. She's been drafted to the Chicago Sky in the WNBA. So now she's right in the mix of being selected. So that postponement has worked in the favour of some athletes, but obviously to the detriment of others.
An amazing career you had, Rach, the 5 WNBL titles and the 3 Olympics like we've spoken about as well. What were some of your highs and lows of your career?
So the WNBL titles with Lightning, and I can never go past the 1994 grand final because we won in double overtime against Melbourne Tigers, and we had I think a record crowd in the WNBL for that time, 5,500 people. And it was just, and it's quite funny because I only just converted it from a VHS tape onto a DVD recently. So I watched it and it was so amazing to watch and so good to watch because I knew we won. So if we would have lost that, I obviously wouldn't be watching it. 94, 95, 96, the three-peat, which is so hard to achieve because obviously you're hunted and everyone wants to topple you. And we didn't win in 97, but we backed it up in 98. So 4 championships in 5 years was just an incredible time with the Lightning. Definitely a low light was my knee reconstruction. I was playing in the WNBA in Detroit Shock. It was the second season. I think it was 18th game in. And I just went up for a routine interception of a pass and came down, and the most incredible pain. I hadn't had a baby at that stage, so I didn't know what childbirth pain was like. But the pain, I just went in straight into a fetal position, and 5 minutes later told me I'd done my ACL, worst 3 letters an athlete is told, and it was 13 months out from the Sydney Olympics, so not great timing. So I was flown straight from Detroit to Melbourne to Dr. David Young, who was the preferred surgeon. And he did an amazing job because I had an impaction fracture because when I landed, my kneecap went left and my tibia hit my femoral condyle. So he said it was the worst he'd seen in 2,000 cases. So he was a genius and put me back together because it could have ended my career. And I would have been a very bitter athlete because I still had 2 Olympics after that. So thank God, with amazing support from surgeon and physios and the medical staff, I was back and selected into the team, 10 months later.
And how do you go with that now? I'm always interested, down the track, how athletes post-career go once they've had an ACL. Do you still have pain and stuff?
I'm so lucky. I don't know how. I'm sure it's going to come. I'm sure the arthritis is going to come, but I'm stronger on my right leg than my left. I can hop better on that leg. I have no pain. So lucky. And hopefully, touch wood, it won't be too bad down the track. And overall, my body's pretty good. I just have niggly things because I injured my groin in my last game in Athens and I didn't rehab it. So that comes back to haunt me because I retired, I didn't rehab it. And my rotator cuff, my right shoulder started to not be so good my last couple of years. But again, it's manageable. And whereas my brother Kieran played for Essendon, he had a knee replacement. He's only 53 last year, and he'll need another one. So he's probably needed that since he was age 30. So I think I'm very lucky in that my joints are pretty good.
Basketball and footy and netball, 3 very
totally
very tough sports and a common, obviously, ACLs and shoulders, like you said. So and post-career, Rach, are you involved with the ABC doing some great stuff there, commentating the WNBL and the NBL as well? What else are you up to? You're still involved with basketball?
So we have the Lightning Academies, which I lent my name to, so the Rachael Sporn Academy. So that's been going for the last 6 years. So that's a pathway to the WNBL, and it identifies 16 to 20-year-olds or the best 20 in the state. So that's 6:30 a.m. Wednesday mornings, but thankfully only 11 weeks of that. So that's been wonderful. So we've had a few graduates from the academy that go on to have played for Lightning. Ruby Porter is certainly one that was a standout, and so that's been really enjoyable. And look, I'm great friends with Chris Lucas, so sort of always keeping up to date with how Adelaide Lightning are going. Sandy Brondello is my best friend, who's coach of the Opals, so always integral in sort of always will be following the Opals, and then her journey with the Phoenix Mercury in the WNBA. So once you've lived basketball, you can't walk away.
And you're doing some wonderful stuff as well with young people with the Olympics. Explain more about that.
Yeah, I love this role with the Australian Olympic Committee called Olympics Unleashed. So it's going out to primary schools, year 4 to 7, and you have just a sort of presentation of photos. It's your Olympic journey. You talk about resilience, goal setting, handling adversity. And the kids are so enthusiastic because at that level they haven't turned into little buggers yet. They're still nice human beings, and I just love it. I love still reminiscing, I guess, about my journey and just it's mainly about finding your passion in life and just making it come true and working hard to your dreams. It doesn't have to be in sport. It could be art, science, drama. It could be in any field. So it's just trying to get them to understand what it takes to get to that top level.
So if anyone out there listening or watching today wants to get involved with the Rachael Sporn Academy or also the program of the Olympics, give yourself a plug. How do we find you?
Well, I guess with the academy, it's invitation. So it's sort of identifying. And look, any primary school in South Australia can register with the Australian Olympic Committee for athletes to come out. Obviously, it's not just me. I think there's about 20 of us in SA who either are emerging Olympians or Olympians who come out and talk to the schools.
Wonderful. Well, Rachael Sporn, thanks so much for joining us on the Legends of Bevo, the road to Tokyo. It's been an absolute pleasure hearing about your journey so far and giving us a real insight to what it was like in the Olympics. So thanks once again.
My pleasure, Bevo. Thank you.